Liaoningosaurus was a relatively small ankylosaur from China. This unique species was first described in 2001 by a group of paleontologists led by Zhu Jing in the Yuxian Formation of China's Liaoning province. Here they named the creature Liaoningosaurus paradoxus. Now when the first fossil was found, it had unfused hip bones, sharp teeth, and elongated limbs. This immediately led scientists to believe that the species was found with a juvenile specimen, until 15 years later in 2016, when a second specimen was discovered. While they contained the same relative features, what was more unique about the second specimen was the contents of its stomach. Inside, the bones of ancient fish were found. So not only this was an incredibly rare case of being able to preserve the diet that this animal had and its contents of its stomach, but it made it the first discovery of an ornithischian dinosaur having an omnivorous or potentially fully piscivorous diet. This species is incredibly unique because just a semi-aquatic ankylosaur, let alone ornithischian dinosaur, is unheard of, let alone one that would have eaten fish. Rhamphorynchus. This small pterosaur lived in the late Jurassic of what is now Europe, and some finds coming from Africa. The fossils of Rhamphorynchus are incredibly well preserved, showing wing membranes and veins in the tail. The best of these specimens, most preserved, come from Germany. Some even have preservations of the outlines of its internal organs, with some studies hinting at sexual dimorphism among size. Scans of the animal's brain cavity lead scientists to believe that Rhamphorhynchus hunted nocturnally. Unlike a majority of pterosaurs, Rhamphorhynchus didn't have any crest or other bony structures along its head. The adults had a wingspan of around 1.5 to 1.8 meters, which was relatively large for the Jurassic, but still considerably quite small. Well-preserved specimens of juveniles suggest that their babies had a wingspan of somewhere around 30 centimeters. This piscivore had a diet of mainly fish, using teeth to match its hunting style of trapping the prey in its mouth. While fish have been found in its own fossils, Rhamphorhynchus has also been found fossilized and caught in the jaws of an ancient fish known as Muttaburrasaurus. With nearly 2 centuries of studies going into Rhamphorhynchus, a lot is known about this unique and awesome pterosaur, which easily makes it one of my favourite of all time. Acrocanthosaurus was a massive land predator of the early Cretaceous 115 to 105 million years ago. It was nearly 12 meters long, or 40 feet. Through a collection of 7 specimens and different finds across the US, Acrocanthosaurus is quite well reconstructed. This dinosaur was part of the Carcharodontaceae taxonomy, which also includes Carcharodontosaurus and Giganotosaurus. Acrocanthosaurus had a massive skull and large, powerful back legs, but the most striking and well-known feature about this animal is its large dorsal spines along its back. While there is a lot of speculation around their entire purpose, bone analysis of the spines highly suggests that they were attached to muscles, leading to the theory that Acrocanthosaurus had a large hump on its back. There is no concise answer to its purpose, but it could have been used for fat storage when the animal was low on access to food, or increasing its surface area to more effectively regulate heat and its body temperature. Acrocanthosaurus fed on a range of prey from local sauropods to even smaller ornithomimids. Either way, this massive Cretaceous predator was a force to be reckoned with, and a magnificent animal that grazed the Cretaceous. Diabloceratops was a ceratopsid from the late Cretaceous roughly 79 million years ago of what is now Utah in the USA. Its name translates to devil-horned face, in reference to the large curved horns coming out of the top of its frill. The first fossil was discovered in 1998 in the Wah-Weep Formation, but wasn't excavated until 2 years later in the year 2000. The lack of fossil evidence makes size estimates difficult, but based on cross-referencing between other skulls of similar sizes, Diabloceratops sits at an estimated 5 to 6 meters long. Like all other ceratopsids, this one also had a beak that would have been used for tearing away at plants. One thing really unique about Diabloceratops is its exact time period. The evolutionary history of ceratopsids isn't that well known, as most of the species, around 30 or so, come from 65 to 78 million years ago. Beyond this time, only 3 ceratops species have been described, Diabloceratops is one of which. This gives scientists more insight in how ceratopsids evolved and the evolution of these classes of dinosaurs. This makes Diabloceratops an incredibly important and unique find across all of ceratopsid and just dinosaur history. Muttaburrasaurus was a large plant-eating ornithopod from eastern Australia. In 1963, its fossils were discovered in a Queensland town called Muttaburra. Upon its discovery, it became the most well-completed Australian dinosaur fossil at roughly 60% completion rate. It's since lost its title to Cunbarasaurus, though. This medium-sized ornithopod grew to about 7 meters long, and estimates weigh in at just under 2 tons. Muttaburrasaurus lived in the early Cretaceous roughly 101 to 105 million years ago. Based on Muttaburrasaurus' structure, it was likely capable of both quadrupedal and bipedal movement. It had a large head and noticeably elongated and rounded snout that was likely used for vocalization purposes or to improve its sense of smell. The evolutionary position of Muttaburrasaurus has been a long topic of debate. It was initially placed with iguanodontids due to its similarities there. However, the general consensus is that Muttaburrasaurus is more of an evolutionary bridge between iguanodontids as opposed to a distinct and direct member. While Muttaburrasaurus may just be another ornithopod dinosaur, I'll always be fond of it because of that unique snout and standout features, and as a symbol for Australian prehistoric life. This beast of an animal is an extinct crocodilomorph called Dakosaurus. Like all marine reptiles, it was not a dinosaur. This prehistoric crocodile lived in the late Jurassic and early Cretaceous. This makes its exact years hard to place, but estimates go from anywhere between 130 to 150 million years ago. This immediately makes Dakosaurus unique as it lived across two major time periods. The majority of Dakosaurus fossils come from Europe, mainly the UK and Germany, however it has a decent fossil record coming from Argentina and Mexico. Around the mid to late 1800s when it was first discovered, Dakosaurus teeth were originally pinned as coming from an extinct theropod called Megalosaurus. The jaws and skull of Dakosaurus, combined with its serrated and compressed teeth, suggest a diet of larger marine reptiles as well as squid and fish. Modern crocodiles possess salt glands which help to excrete and extract excess sodium from the body when being exposed to seawater. While there is no direct evidence that Dakosaurus did have one, there is a cavity in the typical location of these glands, and it would also be extremely unusual if Dakosaurus did not possess one. This animal grew to be about 4 to 5 meters long and weighing anywhere between 200 and 275 kilos. Dakosaurus also had a tail fluke which would have helped to assist its propulsion in the water. Between living across major time periods and unusually dinosaur-like head, Dakosaurus was an incredibly unique and awesome marine reptile. There is plenty more to the discovery of Dakosaurus, and this was a very short summary, and I'd highly suggest reading more about it from the link in the pinned comment below. Hypsilophodon was a smaller ornithopod from the Isle of Wight in England of the early Cretaceous 130 to 125 million years ago, growing from anywhere between 1.5 to larger specimens at 1.8 meters. Classification of Hypsilophodon was delayed by the fact that for the first 20 years of its discovery, it was believed to be a juvenile iguanodon. In 1870 it was officially named separately, and it was named after a genus of lizard called Hypsilophodon for its teeth resemblance. The exact translation of the name Hypsilophodon means high-crested tooth. And an interesting fact and twist to this little story, Hypsilophodon is actually treated as a synonym to iguana. So this means that both Iguanodon and Hypsilophodon are actually named after the same lizard genus. While fossils of Hypsilophodon have been found in Europe, mainland England, and even South Dakota of the USA, these fossils aren't modernly credited to Hypsilophodon, and more likely belong to other genuses with similar characteristics. The current stance is that only fossils from the Isle of Wight in England are credited to Hypsilophodon. This means a lot of other facts and information about this genus are actually wrong as they are from other species of animals. Like other ornithopod dinosaurs, Hypsilophodon's diet was mainly low-lying plants due to the beak on the front of its mouth. Hypsilophodon had 5 fingers on each hand and 4 toes on its feet. Something wildly unique is that scientists actually believe that the 5th finger might have been opposable. The long hind limbs and light body suggest that this may have been one of the fastest dinosaurs, which could indicate a reliance on speed and agility to avoid becoming a meal. As a collection of numerous fossils has been found, this would suggest that Hypsilophodon lived in groups. This may have helped them to evade predators that they coexisted with at the time, including Eotyrannus, Neovenator, and Baryonyx. While to others Hypsilophodon may just be another basic boring design with that same build, I think it's really interesting because it's got a really unique naming story and funny twist on that story, and as it was also one of the first non-avian dinosaurs ever discovered in the late 1800s. Antarctopelta is an extinct species of Nodosaur and Carnosaur that lived roughly 70 to 8 million years ago in what is known as the Campanian era of the Cretaceous. It's the only known armored dinosaur that lived in Antarctica, however it's important to note that at the time Antarctica was not covered in ice. Antarctopelta is known from one specimen consisting of teeth and skull fragments. Unfortunately, due to weather conditions, most of the fossils are damaged. This medium-sized herbivore grew to an estimated 5.5 meters long. As Antarctopelta was a species of nodosaur, it likely had many bony plates covering its back. These would have been known as osteoderms. It's also highly likely that it had shoulder spines or larger spines somewhere between its neck and the rest of its body. Antarctopelta was closely related to Muttaburrasaurus and Stegosaurus. It likely shared its habitat with an ornithopod called Trinosaur. Antarctopelta is an incredibly cool nodosaur, and being the first species discovered in Antarctica, it makes it really unique.